Hey YouTube, it's Casual Brews here with my Week 4 NFL picks. This is off of the back of my first video in quite a while. I did that last week, where I did the best bets, my 5 best bets for Week 3. Managed to go 3-2 on those picks. Had a bad start to the day with Dallas and the Chargers. Should never bet on the Cowboys. Never goes well. But managed to salvage my week with the afternoon slate doing well, having the Seahawks team total over, and the Chiefs -3 against the Falcons, and the Rams winning outright. So not a bad start. And now we're on to week 4, where I'm going to do all the games. I thought about doing the spreads and the over-unders, but I don't know. I just think the over-unders are such a crapshoot. I'm just going to stick right now with just the spreads. I'm going to pick against the spread for every game, including the Thursday night game, so that's where we're going to start. Being that this is the Casual Brews show, we're going to start with a little... this video is brought to you by... no free ads, but this video is brought to you by Red Truck Beer, the Chili Willy Cold IPA. Liquor store by my work. My buddy and I popped in. We like to go there because they offer $2 beers, and this is one of the $2 beers they had at the moment. It's nice to see a craft beer on for $2. Can't go wrong there. Had never seen it before. The guy there was saying that Red Truck Beer, they offer them a good deal if they buy, in large quantities, so that's why they put them on for $2. So, yeah, give this one a go as the accompaniment for these picks. It's pretty nice for a $2 IPA. Never been a big Red Truck fan. I think they're just okay, but this is a good beer. Chili Willy's Cold IPA. Yeah, it's nice, especially for $2. Can't go wrong. It's pretty good. All right, let's get into it. First game, the Thursday nighter, New York Giants versus the Dallas Cowboys in Jerry World. I like the Giants plus 5.5. Not just because Dallas kind of screwed me last week, but I just think this divisional matchup. Obviously, I know Dallas killed them in the opening week last year, but I think Dallas has some problems defensively. They can't run the ball at all, which is bad when you get into like a close divisional game like this. Giants obviously had a big win last week, but I don't think they're going to be great. I don't think either of these teams is going to be all that far off of like an 8-9, 9-8, 7-10, 10-7 kind of season. So I think a game like this just goes down to a close game. I think Dallas probably squeaks it out, but I don't see this game being far off of like a 23-20 Dallas win. So I like the Giants plus 5.5. Next we got Denver at the New York Jets. Denver 7.5 point underdogs. And I like the Denver dogs as well in this case here, plus 7.5. I think their defense is pretty good. I think Aaron Rodgers against a good defensive team, like I believe Denver is, likes to kind of play it a bit conservative. He doesn't really care about blowing teams out. He just likes to do a lot of play action, hand the ball off, make the throws when he needs to make them. I can see this being a pretty low-scoring game. Again, I like New York to probably win it, but it's probably going to be low-scoring, grinded-out kind of game. I could see the Jets winning something like a 20-16 game here. So give me Denver plus 7.5. I think they beat the Bucks last week. Obviously, bit of a shocker after Tampa's 2-0 start, but I think I think it may be a little bit. I don't think the Bucks are as bad as that game showed, or I don't think they're as good as that 2-0 record showed. But I think Denver is a perfectly good average team, and Bo Nix is a gamer. He'll run for first downs, put his body on the line, make the plays he needs to make. But so I think 7.5 points is a bit much. I think that's the Aaron Rodgers factor. I think if it was any other quarterback, this game would be near a pick'em. but people are still clinging on to, 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers being one of the best quarterbacks ever, which he is, but I think 7.5 is a lot to lay here against a good defense, so give me Denver. Next game, Cincinnati Bengals at Carolina. I like Cincinnati minus the 4 here in this one. Carolina coming off the shocker of the week, probably blowing out the Raiders. But, I don't think the Raiders, outside of obviously Devontae Adams being a top receiver, Max Crosby being a top pass rusher, I think the rest of the roster is pretty weak. I think when the dust settles, Vegas will be one of the worst teams in the league. So I don't put a ton of stock into that game. Unfortunately for Bryce Young, shows how bad he is that Andy Dalton came in there and, it was like a night and day difference in how their offense ran in Carolina. But I think at the end of the day, Carolina's still a work in progress. Young team, rebuilding, obviously. I think Cincinnati's obviously desperate. I think I unfortunately went against the desperation factor when I picked Dallas against the Ravens last week. I think this is even a bigger desperation factor for Cincinnati. I think minus 4 is too easy in this case. At Carolina, I know, whatever, but yeah, I think the Bengals roll them here. Andy Dalton's a great story. He's good for a couple great games off the bench as a backup, whatever, the last couple years, but I think Cincinnati needs this one badly. 0-3 is not quite a death sentence, but it's pretty close to it. But if any quarterback can kind of pull their team out of the gutters and make something out of a 0-3 season, it's Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, obviously big helps. Their defense is really bad. That's concerning. A lot of injuries there, but I think they got to have this one and they'll get it done, win it pretty easily. So give me the Bengals minus 4. Next, we got Houston at home against Jacksonville. Houston 6.5 point favorites. I'm taking that. I think the Jacksonville we saw against Buffalo is kind of a little bit more of what we'll see the rest of the season. I think they're a flawed team. Yeah, I don't know. Trevor Lawrence does not look good. It's one thing to have a bad game here and there as a quarterback, but some of the throws he was making, especially the interception to Damar Hamlin, that was just a horrendous throw. I think Jacksonville's in trouble. I think they're going to reel off a bad season here. And Houston's going to be probably pissed off of getting smoked last week. So I think minus 6.5 at home is a pretty solid cover for the Texans, getting back on track. I think Jacksonville's in trouble. They're going to have to rebuild or figure something out. Because, from what I've seen, I think they are probably more than likely just a bad team. So give me Houston minus 6.5. Next up, the LA Rams at Chicago. Chicago is 3-point favorites in this one. I like the Rams plus 3. The Rams at San Fran, that was a big game. I think that was a big, I know it's early in the season, but I think that was a kind of a season-defining kind of figure out what you're going to be kind of game for them. Both teams in that game, the Rams at Niners, had injuries. Obviously, the Rams were missing Kupp and Nakua, and they will be in this game too, I'm pretty certain. So, but they managed to pull out a win against their rivals, against the Niners, and I think that set the blueprint for how they want to play their game. McVay, incredible coach, incredible game planner, made that work, and he's now 3-point underdogs against a team that just lost to the Colts. Not that the Colts are horrendous, but they're not a great team either, and with Rams getting 3 points in this situation after what's transpired for both teams last week seems pretty crazy. It's almost like a trap line, but sometimes these trap lines just work, and I think in this case it will. I like the Rams here. Bears will have some growing pains. They were not a very good team last year, and they got the number 1 overall quarterback, Caleb Williams. Is he better than Jaden Daniels? I don't know. Situations obviously make a big play a big part of it. Coaching, ownership, and that too. But yeah, I think this line is crazy. I was expecting Rams to be like a favorite of 3 in this game, so I'm not going to overthink it. Just going to lay the number, play the number +3. Boom, Rams +3. Take it all day. Next up, we got Green Bay at home. 2-point favorites against Minnesota. Minnesota, one of the big stories this year, 3-0. Sam Darnold, guy who never got a fair shake, played for a dysfunctional Jets team. Got cast off to San Fran, had to be back up and this and that. You could argue this is his first shot on like a really competent roster with a good set of weapons. And by good set of weapons, I mean like he's got, Justin Jefferson. Like that's head and shoulders above any receiver talent he had in New York or maybe even San Fran, even though he didn't really get much time there, obviously, to play. But I think Green Bay's kind of got something. They got a bit of a, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to coaching. Matt LaFleur's done really well with Malik Willis, and it seems crazy to pick Malik Willis as a favorite when he was so bad with Tennessee, but I think that maybe speaks more to Tennessee's lack of offensive game plan and weapons and everything they had. Green Bay's defense is playing really well. So is Minnesota's, but I think at the end of the day, I'm looking more at Green Bay's running game in this case with the guy from Vegas. Forgetting his fucking name. But yeah, I just think Green Bay's team overall is still a little bit better. I mean, the quarterback, it's a tale of two kind of castaway quarterbacks, Malik Willis for Sam Darnold. But I think overall Green Bay's roster is just a little bit better. I think this will be a very close game. I could see it being like down to a game-winning drive maybe, or maybe Green Bay taking the lead early and holding on. I think that's more likely. Malik Willis game-winning drive doesn't totally compute, but I could see Green Bay kind of getting a lead and sort of hanging on down the line. If I had to pick a score in this game, I'd go with something like 24-20 Green Bay. So give me Green Bay -2. Next up, we got Atlanta at home. They're 2-point favorites over the Saints. And yeah, I like the Falcons to kind of take this one over the Saints. The Saints were the shock of the league the first 2 weeks, beating the Cowboys badly, beating the Panthers, I think it was, in week 1. But yeah, Atlanta's pretty good. I think New Orleans, their game against Philadelphia kind of shocked it back to the senses a little bit. That offense that scored like 40-plus points or whatever the first 2 games, all of a sudden couldn't score, couldn't move the ball, couldn't get a first down for most of the game against the Eagles, whose defense had not been very good prior to that. So I think the Saints were quickly exposed as like a mediocre team. Like, okay, like the division might not be. No, I think that division's going to beat each other up, so it may not be too hard to compete in that division as like a 10-7, 9-8 team. But yeah, I think that's kind of where the Saints are going to be. I think Atlanta just has the edge in weapons and quarterback play. Kirk Cousins slightly over Derek Carr. Although Alvin Kamara has been very good, Bijan Robinson is better when he's just not always utilized the right way, but he is an incredible talent too. I think Atlanta will squeak this one out. It'll be close. The game's in Atlanta, makes a big difference. If it was in New Orleans, maybe it would be different, but game's in Atlanta. I like Atlanta to kind of squeak one out here. Close game probably, but I'll take the -2 here. Next up, Philadelphia Eagles. They're 2.5-point favorites at Tampa Bay. I like the Eagles laying the 2.5. I think Tampa Bay, that game we just saw getting beat by the Broncos, was more like what maybe they are versus their wins earlier in the season. Their two wins to start the season. Their offensive line's really, really bad. Baker's got sacked I think 7 times against the Broncos, and then I think he was sacked 5 times the game before. Their offensive line's really bad. Their defense isn't great either, and I think it's just, if you can't win in the trenches, you're going to have a hard time. Doesn't matter your skill players you have. But I mean, even the skill players too, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, they're great and all, but they're the same guys that have been on this team forever. It's, without Tom Brady at the helm, they haven't got over the hump. So I think the Eagles, that win, as ugly as it was, that win against the Saints is the kind of win that propels the team, even more so than winning like a shootout, right? That's the kind of win that galvanizes the team, that you gutted it out, you gritted it out, you won in the fourth quarter, you played defense, you got after it. Jalen Carter was insane. He was all over Derek Carr last week. I think that was a springboard game, and as bad as Philly has looked at times this year, I think that ugly win against the Saints, probably galvanized them, and I think they put a beat down on the Bucks this game. I think the Bucks are just going to go back to being an okay team. I like Philly -2.5. I like them to probably win by 10 this game. Yeah. Next up, Pittsburgh Steelers at Indianapolis. Steelers are -1.5. The game's in Indy. It's a tough one. This could go either way. Not my favorite game because, Pittsburgh struggled to score at times. Indy, it's kind of a weird team too. Like with Anthony Richardson, they're kind of a boom or bust offense. If the deep ball's not working, they don't get much going. But they can score, they can hit 70-yard bombs and back-to-back plays, back-to-back drives. Their defense hasn't been good the first two games, but it really locked down against the Bears. I don't know. I like the Steelers -1.5. I think their system and their defense is going to cause some problems for, a less experienced guy. Richardson, he's in his second year, yes, but he's basically still a rookie because he was injured last year, right? So I think that defense the Steelers have, the pass rush, and that's going to give Richardson a lot of problems. I like Pittsburgh winning another low-scoring game here, probably fucking 20-10 or something for the Steelers. And Justin Fields is playing well. He's taking what the defense is giving him. He's not trying to do too much. He's in a good situation, whereas when he was with the Bears, there was a lot of pressure on him being a first-round pick, obviously. But with the Steelers, he's kind of like a castaway, like a Sam Darnold, like a whoever. He's playing with house money, and he's just, but he's not trying to do too much, not trying to prove anyone. He's just doing what he can do. He's supposed to be the backup until Wilson comes back, but he's playing so well, really, within the system that it's hard to even imagine Russell Wilson taking his job back over Fields at this point, right? So I think this is a big game. I mean, if the Steelers can go 4-0 with their quote-unquote backup quarterback, it's going to be some good but tough decisions that Mike Tomlin's going to have to make. So, but yeah, I like it to happen. I mean, I like the Steelers -1.5 here. Next up, we got New England at San Fran. New England is 10-point underdogs, and I'm gonna plug my nose and take the Patriots here with that big spread. I mean, it's tough for any team to cover a 10-point spread, let alone a team that's had injury problems. McCaffrey gone. They didn't really look all that convincing against the Rams. Brock Purdy's solid, but I don't think he's a guy who can overcome and just pull a rabbit out of his hat and beat a team without his familiar weapons. I think he's kind of like a guy who, not to call him a system quarterback, but he kind of needs the system to be intact to really be at his best, So, I mean, they're 1-2. It's crazy that a 1-2 team is a 10-point favorite against another 1-2 team. That's crazy. Again, it's more like the history, like the recency bias history of San Fran, how they've been over the recent years. But I think San Fran missed their window. I mean, I've been saying it. I think the Niners' window was maybe a year or two ago. They didn't get it done. And they're going to get progressively worse. It's just the way the NFL works with salary cap and players getting older and this and that, and other teams getting rewarded for being bad, getting high draft picks, this and that. I don't think San Fran's going to be that good this year, especially with injuries. I think +10 is a lot. Again, New England looked bad last game, but I think they're good enough defensively, and they got the perfect, game manager, Jacoby Brissett, to just keep it within the number. I think San Fran's going to win. I mean, almost certain San Fran's going to win the game, but it's going to be close. It's going to be like an ugly, probably like 20-17 game, I would say, for San Fran. So give me New England plus 10. That's just a way too high of a number. Next up, we got Washington, the Commanders, off a hot Monday night game. 3.5-point dogs at Arizona. Arizona obviously, look good. First couple weeks, they're 1-2 now. Though obviously lost to Buffalo, lost to Detroit last week. It's kind of a weird line. I mean, Washington looked amazing. Their defense, though, not so much. But I like Washington plus 3.5 here. I think Arizona is frisky. They're gonna put up points. But I think like a classic revenge game, Cliff Kingsbury going back to Arizona, he's gonna dial something up. I think Washington is the better team, not by much maybe, because I don't think either of these teams are contenders per se, but they both have, with their weapons and their dual threat quarterbacks that they have, I think it's going to be some fireworks. But yeah, I think Washington's overall playing a little bit better right now, a little more cohesive. I like the Commanders plus 3.5. Next up, the Cleveland Browns are 2-point underdogs at Las Vegas. Two kind of disappointing teams. Well, I mean, I guess maybe Las Vegas didn't really have a ton of expectations, but the Browns, obviously, with Deshaun Watson and his mammoth contract, had a lot of expectations. They've been overall pretty disappointing this year, coming off a bad loss to the Giants. Game they were up 7-0 within 2 seconds to blow that game. It's pretty bad. And Vegas getting obviously beat badly by the Andy Dalton Panthers. I just think the Browns, even though Deshaun Watson's look like shit, I still believe that he's better than Gardner Minshew or Aiden McConnell, whoever they put out there, and that'll be kind of the deciding factor. And the Browns defense too, a little bit better. I think Vegas, their roster's just not that good outside of obviously a couple superstars, Crosby and Devontae Adams. The roster's pretty bad. I think the Browns squeaked this one out. So give me the 2 points on that one. Then we got Kansas City Chiefs minus 7.5 at the Chargers. I like the Chiefs minus 7.5 here. Tough pick. I mean, it's a lot to lay against the John Harbaugh kind of resurgent Chargers team, but I think this is at the point in the season where the Chiefs, they've looked a little sluggish out the gate, but they're 3-0 still without playing their best football. I think a divisional game like this against a team that they, obviously know well, they know a lot of the players. They haven't played against Jim Harbaugh before, but they know the Chargers, they know the team, they know the stadium. It's going to be like 50% Chiefs fans in the stadium at a SoFi in LA there. So I think this is a game where the Chiefs kind of flip the switch, get on their roll, and the Chargers, well, I think still well coached by Jim Harbaugh. Their roster is a work in progress. I don't think they hired Jim Harbaugh to be contending team year one. Those first 2 wins were nice, but I don't think the Chargers are going to be great this year. Plus, I don't even know if Herbert's playing in this game. He was barely able to play last game. They arguably shouldn't have played him last game because he had the, I don't know if it's a shoulder or what it was, but he was really injured, looked off. So he may not. I would assume based on this line, I didn't check if he was playing, but I assume with the minus 7.5 that he's not playing. But I kind of assumed even if he was playing, he wouldn't be at like a fraction of his strength. So it's probably going to be Easton Stick or whatever. So yeah, I think the Chiefs win big here, get the ball rolling. Classic Chiefs run up the score. I think this is going to be ugly. And then we got Buffalo at Baltimore. Baltimore 2.5-point favorites in this one at home. Two teams coming off impressive wins. More so Buffalo's being able to take a big lead home against the Jaguars. Baltimore obviously was up big on Dallas, almost blew it, gave up an onside kick, 3 straight touchdowns, I think. hung on in the end by Lamar Jackson's legs and like a little play action pass he made on the sideline to Flowers. But yeah, I like more of what I saw from Buffalo versus Baltimore in this one. That's why I'm going with the Bills plus the 2.5. Obviously, I think they win the game outright, but I'm just going with the points here. It's hard to bet against Josh Allen at this point. I mean, just like it was hard to get bet against, Lamar Jackson last year, winning the MVP. I think right now Josh Allen's playing with the MVP. He's playing within himself, not trying to do too much. He's got a good mix of weapons, tight ends, receivers, speed guys. The running game's going pretty well with James Cook. And obviously he himself can tuck in and run. He's not trying to do too much crazy stuff that he did, the last couple of years. He's protecting the ball. No interceptions so far, which is huge. If you can keep that up, the Bills are going to be a tough team to beat. Their defense might not be... their defense probably won't be as good as it was in past years because they've lost some guys. But Josh Allen can give you 25 to 30 points a game with his offense. It's tough to beat, even if you don't have a great defense. So I like the Bills here to cover the 2.5 and probably win against the Ravens. Next up, Miami at home against Tennessee. Miami's 1-point favorites. Kind of a weird game. Tennessee 0-3, obviously struggling mightily. Miami, 2 quarterbacks injured, onto their third string, Tim Boyle, or maybe even the fourth string. They signed off the streets a couple weeks ago in Brett, Huntley. Yeah, used to play for the Ravens. He might start even this coming week. Either way, I just think Tennessee is that bad. I'm taking Miami -1 just off of their skill players they have, just hoping that, Mike McDaniel will kind of craft something up in the lab to get Tyreek and Waddle some plays with whoever's at quarterback. I don't think Tennessee doesn't have anyone even close to that good as Tyreek and Waddle in their arsenal. In the running game, obviously, too, with Achane. I just think Miami can just figure something out, regardless of who plays quarterback, to beat a bad team like the Titans at this point. So I'll take Miami -1 at home. And lastly, the Monday Nighter, one of the games of the week here. Seahawks +3.5 at Detroit. I am biased. I'm a Seahawks fan. It's going to be tough. I'm not going to lie, because to be fair, we have not played a good team. We're 3-0. We beat the Broncos, which, hey, maybe after their win against the Bucks, maybe that looks a bit better. Beat the Pats. Had to go to overtime to beat the Patriots. Doesn't look great after the Patriots got smoked by the Jets. And then we beat the Dolphins with Skylar Thompson, Tim Boyle combo at quarterback. So not exactly a crazy impressive resume, but this team just looks different than the past Seahawks teams under Pete Carroll. It's like a different little bit of juice. McDonald just seems to be a guy who is in full control and just has just an inspiring level of confidence and aura about him in the way he conducts this coaching thing. He just seems to have a good grasp. The players are just always fired up. Pete Carroll, to be fair, yes, he had the players always fired up. He was a good players coach, pumped everyone up, but just he didn't always seem to be fully in control of what was going on. Some dumb plays would happen, and he would just kind of sit there on the sidelines looking stupid about it. McDonald just seems to have a good grasp of what's going on. He never seems too flustered, even in the first game when they took 2 safeties in the first half. Who does that? No, didn't seem to be any kind of flappability in him. He just was calm, cool, collected. Came out at halftime, all the adjustments were made, and then they took over that game. It's just coaching makes a big difference. It really does. Look at LaFleur winning with Malik Willis. Look at McVay winning against San Fran with his 2 best receivers out. Coaching makes a big difference, and I think McDonald's a really good coach, especially with the defense. The defense, considering they picked up guys off the street and they're some of their best players, Jenkins, and Jordan Love wasn't very good last year, and McDonald comes through and he's one of their best defensive players. So yeah, I like the Seahawks here. I think it's gonna be a tough game. It's gonna be a close game. I'm hoping we're gonna win, but I do believe we will win. It'll be tough though, because we have not had a test like the Detroit Lions, who look very good to start the year. So give me the Seahawks plus 3.5. Homer pick, sure, but I do think we are the better team, but it's going to be damn close. This is going to be probably a down to the wire, last possession kind of game. So give me the points in that case all day long. Seahawks plus 3.5. And that's my picks. Yeah, we'll see you guys again next week.